50,000 people filled the massive Lakewood auditorium, the lights glowing gold across a sea of expectant faces. At center stage, a single microphone waited beneath a spotless spotlight. It was supposed to be a night of celebration, a unity event, a peace rally, a moment that would show the world that faith and leadership could stand together. But that was before Jasmine Crockett stepped onto the platform. Her heels clicked sharply against the polished floor as she approached the podium. Her expression carried a strange mix of calm and focus, the kind of steady confidence that made even the people in the front row sit up straighter. Every eye locked onto her. But backstage, something very different was happening. Joel Osteen stood behind the curtain, arms folded, head tilted like a man trying to smile through a headache. His top audio technician nervously clutched his headset. A stage manager hovered behind him, whispering, "Pastor, are you sure?" Cutting the mic publicly, people might notice. Joel didn't blink. "Do it when I signal. She's not here to preach, she's here to challenge. And we can't let this event turn into something we didn't approve." The technician swallowed hard. Seconds later, Jasmine placed her hands on both sides of the podium, inhaling slowly. Her voice rang out soft but steady. "Thank you for welcoming me. Tonight, I came with a message that may not." Click. Silence. Her mic died mid-sentence. A confused ripple spread through the audience. Several people leaned forward. Some whispered. Others looked directly toward the sound booth. And Joel Osteen stepped out from behind the curtain with a soft, camera-ready smile. The exact smile a man wears when he thinks the problem is under control. But something he didn't expect happened. Jasmine didn't freeze. She didn't stutter. She didn't panic. Instead, she lifted the dead mic from the podium, held it up briefly, and set it down gently, almost ceremonially. Then she took 3 slow steps away from the podium, away from the church's equipment, away from the controls, away from anything Joel could silence. When she turned back toward the crowd, her voice carried across the room without amplification, yet somehow felt louder than any microphone could make it. "Let me show you what happens," she said, "when someone tries to silence the truth, and the truth refuses to sit down." A chill went through the room, and Joel Osteen, for the first time all night, stopped smiling. But what Jasmine said next is what truly left him frozen. End of section 1, and the real mystery hasn't even been revealed yet. There's a reason Joel ordered his staff to cut her mic. A reason deeper than disagreement. A reason far more complicated than simple stage control. Because Jasmine Crockett had not come here to give a testimony. She had not come to promote a program. She had not come for applause or endorsements. She came carrying something Joel Osteen feared more than criticism, more than controversy, more than headlines. She came with information. She came with documents. She came with stories the public had never heard. Stories she had personally verified, stories she had investigated for months. Stories from people whose lives were shattered when they believed that giving money to the ministry was the same as receiving God's blessing. Stories of families who had quietly asked Lakewood for help and received silence. Stories of elderly members who gave away rent and medication money, believing it would return pressed down, shaken together, running over, only to find themselves alone and ashamed. Stories Joel never wanted on his stage. And Jasmine knew something else, something that made the stakes even higher. If she didn't expose what she had discovered now, tonight, in front of this audience, then it would be buried forever. Her voice wasn't just her own. It carried the weight of people who didn't have a platform. People who didn't have a microphone. People who couldn't fight back. This wasn't a disagreement. This was a crossroads. If Jasmine succeeded, thousands, maybe millions, might rethink the way they understood generosity, faith, and accountability. If she failed, Joel's silence would stay unchallenged. The stories she carried would stay unheard. The cycle would continue. And that's why Joel panicked. That's why the mic had to go. That's why the room was now holding its breath. Because Jasmine Crockett wasn't here to make noise. She was here to make history. If you're watching this and you're ready for truth over silence, hit the like button and keep watching. The real confrontation starts now. The story didn't begin on stage. It began 3 months earlier with a phone call Jasmine couldn't forget. Congresswoman Crockett, the woman on the line, chirped. "Pastor Joel would be honored if you joined him for a special unity service. He believes your voice will inspire thousands." The tone was sweet, almost overly polished. Jasmine thanked her politely, but hung up feeling a strange tightening in her chest. Something was off. The invitation felt too carefully crafted, the language too perfectly rehearsed. So she asked her assistant to run a background check, not on Joel, but on the event itself. That's when she learned something unusual. This service wasn't about unity. It wasn't about inspiration. It wasn't even about community. It was about optics. A handful of journalists had recently questioned Lakewood's spending patterns. Some reports raised concerns about how funds were distributed. And suddenly, Joel Osteen's team was reaching out to respected public figures, hoping to surround the ministry with credible faces. Faces like Jasmine Crockett. But Jasmine didn't build her reputation by standing next to power. She built it by speaking to power. Instead of accepting immediately, she asked to tour some of the outreach programs. Joel's team agreed, but only with escorts. Only on selected routes. Only with prepped volunteers. Except one volunteer didn't follow the script. A young mother pulled Jasmine aside, tears in her eyes, and whispered, "I kept giving because they said God would bless me, but now I'm 3 months behind on rent." Another person stepped forward. Then another. And another. By the end of the visit, Jasmine had quietly recorded 17 testimonies, all from people who believed they had failed spiritually simply because they remained poor. For the next 2 months, Jasmine investigated, verified records, interviewed families, reviewed donation patterns, and by the time the event date arrived, she knew exactly why Joel wanted her there. Not because she was respected, not because she was powerful, but because he needed her silence. What he didn't know was that Jasmine never walks into a room unprepared. And she never walks away from people who trusted her with their truth. The confrontation she planned was something Joel never saw coming. And it only gets more explosive from here. The service was minutes from beginning when Jasmine arrived backstage. Hair and makeup teams rushed around. Staff hurried past with clipboards. But as soon as she stepped through the door, a subtle shift happened. People started whispering, glancing, moving with tightened shoulders. Then a Lakewood staff member approached her. "Ms. Crockett, Pastor Joel wants to remind you to stick to the prepared statement he approved." Jasmine raised an eyebrow. "Prepared by who?" Pastor Joel's communications team." Jasmine smiled politely, but the steel behind her eyes didn't go unnoticed. "I wasn't aware that truth needs approval." The staff member blinked twice, unsure how to respond. Jasmine walked away before he could try. Moments later, Joel entered the room. His presence was polished, camera-ready. But his eyes flickered when they landed on Jasmine. "Jasmine, so glad you're here," he said, voice warm but strained. "Likewise," she replied calmly. "I hope tonight's message reaches the people who need it most." A small pause, not long enough to be disrespectful, but long enough to be felt. Joel's smile tightened. "Just stay on script," he murmured quietly. "This event is very important." Jasmine leaned closer, speaking just as softly. "So is the truth." The conversation ended there, not with agreement, but with an invisible line drawn between them. Minutes later, as she stood waiting to walk on stage, Jasmine noticed 2 audio technicians adjusting settings frantically. The lead tech kept glancing toward Joel, who whispered something into his headset. Something Jasmine couldn't hear, but could absolutely read on their faces. Control. Containment. Censorship. When she stepped on stage, she already knew what was coming. She delivered her opening sentence. "Tonight, I want to speak for the people whose stories were never heard." Cut. The mic died. But Jasmine didn't come here to be amplified. She came to amplify others. So she stepped away from the podium and addressed the crowd directly with a voice steady, strong, and unshakable. She began listing truths, not accusations, real experiences from real people, spoken with compassion instead of condemnation. Joel's face drained of color. Security shifted. Staff froze. The audience leaned in. Jasmine Crockett had just crossed the line Joel never expected anyone to cross publicly. And what she revealed next would make the entire room erupt. If you're still watching, hit like, because what follows is the moment Joel truly loses control. Jasmine took another step forward, not toward the podium, but toward the people. "Let me tell you about a woman named Clara," she said, her voice carrying across the arena. A hush fell instantly. She was a grandmother. She loved baking. She loved her church. And she believed that if she just gave a little more, her breakthrough would come. Someone in the audience gasped softly. But instead of blessings, Jasmine continued, she fell behind on her medication. She stopped buying groceries. She hid overdue bills in drawers, ashamed to ask for help. Jasmine paused, letting the weight of the story settle. She never told anyone she felt like God didn't love her anymore, because she stayed poor. A wave of murmurs ran through the audience. Joel took one small step toward her. "Now, Jasmine," he began. But she raised her hand gently, stopping him without disrespect, without anger, but with a level of authority that surprised even the crowd. "Let me finish." Joel froze mid-step. Jasmine reached into her jacket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. "This is a note Clara wrote to her daughter the week before she passed." She wrote, "I gave everything because I wanted God to be proud of me." A woman in the front row began crying. Another story followed. A young father, a single mother, a retired veteran. Stories of people who gave out of hope, but carried shame when nothing changed. "I'm not here to accuse anyone," Jasmine said softly. "I'm here because people like Clara should not feel invisible." Joel lifted his chin, preparing to speak, but the audience booed softly before he could open his mouth. That's when Jasmine delivered the line that cracked his composure completely. No leader should ever fear their people hearing the truth. The arena erupted. Some stood. Some cheered. Some cried. Some simply stared frozen in disbelief. And Joel Osteen, standing inches from Jasmine Crockett, no longer looked like the smiling host of a polished event. He looked like a man who just realized he no longer controlled the room. But what happened next is what truly shook Lakewood to its core. The ripples started quietly, a soft murmur in the far left corner of the auditorium. Then another, and another, like wind bending the tops of trees before a storm. Within seconds, 50,000 people shifted in their seats, eyes darting between Jasmine, the silent microphone, and the control booth where chaos was unfolding behind darkened glass. A woman in the balcony leaned over the railing. "Did they just shut her off?" she whispered, loud enough for 3 rows to hear. A man near the aisle stood up, raising his phone high like a torch. "They cut her mic. Why would they cut her mic if she was lying?" His voice echoed, landing heavy in a room built to carry sound. That one statement ignited the spark. People stood. People shouted. People pointed not in anger, but in disbelief, demanding clarity from the booth, from the volunteers, from the leadership. A wave of shock rolled through the crowd as realization struck them all at once. Someone tried to silence her. Security began moving toward the stage, but the moment their feet hit the lower steps, they hesitated. Every person in the seating area had their phones raised, recording from every angle. Live streams exploded. Comments scrolled across screens so fast the text blurred. No guard wanted to be the one caught dragging a woman off stage for simply speaking. Through the uproar, Jasmine remained utterly calm. Her stillness was striking. It made the chaos around her look even louder. She lifted her chin slightly, projecting her voice without force. "I'm not here to divide anyone," she said. "I'm here to remind us that compassion should never be conditional." The building erupted, not in anger, but in applause that rolled like thunder. It rattled the stage lights. It vibrated the floorboards. Even the guards froze, unsure whether they were meant to follow orders or follow conscience. Joel stepped forward from behind the podium, his voice strained. "Please, everyone, let's stay peaceful." But then something completely unexpected happened. The worship leader, a woman who had sung under those same lights for more than 12 years, stepped down from her platform. She didn't look at Joel. She didn't even look at Jasmine. She looked at the audience, tears forming in her eyes. She set her microphone gently at Joel's feet. "I can't sing about hope," she whispered, "if people are hurting right in front of us." Silence washed through the room. Then another musician removed his guitar strap. Another set down his drumsticks. A keyboardist quietly powered down her instrument. One by one, the worship team walked off the stage, leaving Joel alone beneath the glow of the spotlights that had once felt warm, now unbearably harsh. The audience no longer hesitated. Some knelt and prayed. Some shouted "Amen" through tears. Others confronted volunteer leaders with trembling voices. Entire families hugged, realizing they had never heard these stories before. Never been exposed to this kind of truth. Joel's voice cracked as he tried to regain control. "Security, please, stop recording." But the moment the words left his mouth, 50,000 phones zoomed in on him simultaneously. There was no editing this moment. No muting it. No cutting the feed. Truth had already escaped the building. Jasmine stepped closer, not dominating, not triumphing, but anchoring the room with her presence. "Pastor," she said softly, "no one is against you. They're asking for honesty. They're asking for compassion. We can give them that together if we're brave enough. Joel's breath caught. He didn't look afraid of Jasmine. He looked afraid of the truth she carried, afraid of how deeply it resonated. He knew she was right. He just didn't know how to face it. What happened after the lights went down would change everything. If this moment shook you, drop a comment and subscribe, because the final revelation is the most powerful part of the story. When the service finally ended, chaos still hung thick in the air. Journalists were outside. Livestream clips had gone viral. Millions of views poured in within the first hour. But the moment that truly mattered happened privately. Jasmine was gathering her things backstage when she heard soft footsteps behind her. Joel Osteen. Not the polished pastor from the pulpit. Not the smiling face from interviews. A man who looked exhausted, humbled, and unsure. "Jasmine," he said quietly. "Why did you do this?" She turned halfway toward him. "Because someone had to speak for them." He swallowed. "I never meant to hurt anyone." "I believe you," she replied. "But ignoring pain creates more of it." Joel hesitated, then walked forward and sat on one of the empty chairs. His voice shook. "People expect me to have answers. I've tried so hard to keep things positive that sometimes I don't look closely enough at the people who are struggling." Jasmine sat across from him. "It's never too late to fix something that's broken. But you have to be the one to step forward first." Joel covered his face with both hands. For the first time all night, he wasn't a public figure. He was a man wrestling with the weight of leadership. And then something happened that no one, not Jasmine, not the staff, not the audience, expected. Joel looked up with tears forming in his eyes. "What should I do?" Jasmine took out one of the notes families had given her. The story of a man who lost his home after giving his savings hoping for a breakthrough. She placed it gently in his hands. "Start by listening to them. Really listening. Let their stories change you." Joel stared at the note for a long time. Then he whispered, "You left me frozen on that stage tonight." She gave him a soft, steady smile. "No, I left you thinking. There's a difference." Outside, the media buzzed. Inside, a shift was beginning. Not a collapse, but a transformation. Because the truth Jasmine carried didn't destroy Joel. It awakened him. And the next day, he made a decision that shocked even his closest staff. He announced a new foundation dedicated entirely to helping struggling families, and invited Jasmine to help lead it. The story didn't end with confrontation. It ended with change. If you're ready for stories that inspire truth and transformation, hit subscribe, because more powerful stories are coming.